Hello and welcome back to AmourologyEd, where we do sex and alternative lifestyle education. My name is Krista. I'm your host. Okay, so we went through the LGBTQ2IA, that trajectory. So now that you have watched those videos, because you have, right, and you know some terminology and you know what kind of the baseline is for that type of stuff, I really want to start going into more different topics. So we're going to start talking about things having to do with pleasure. We're going to start talking about just basic sex education. We're going to start talking about more alternative lifestyles, and we're going to have a lot of interviews set up for that. I'm really excited about it, but I'm going to kind of start intermingling them all in. I really wanted to give people kind of a baseline to go off of, but yay, we're past that. You know all the stuff. Not really. I don't even know all the stuff. So we're going to kind of go from there. Which brings me to today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about context in terms of pleasure. Okay, so what the heck does context mean? We're going to be talking about how the brain is the second largest sex organ. So right after the skin is the largest sex organ, the largest sensual, sexual thing, but the brain is second to that. And everybody has a brain, so everybody has this having to get their brain in the right place in order to experience the maximum amount of pleasure that they can experience. So I would like to say with all of this that a lot of the research being done on this is being done a lot with vulva owners. So I'm going to try not to make any broad sweeping generalities, but if this doesn't apply to you, then that's totally fine. Maybe you are a vulva owner and it doesn't apply to you. Maybe you're not a vulva owner and this doesn't apply to you. Everybody's different. All these people are different. So I'm just going to go through a couple different kinds of contextual things that people kind of run up against when it comes to sexual pleasure, and then kind of ways to combat that. So to kind of start this off, I want to talk about an idea kind of put forward in the book Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. If you haven't read it before, I highly, highly recommend it, particularly for vulva owners, although it could be useful for a wide variety of people and genders and sexes. She talks about this idea of this gas pedal system when it comes to being turned on. So we have things that hit the gas for us. That's touch, sight, smell, anything in our environment, anything in our context that could turn us on. And then we have this brake system that's simultaneously going, and this is also being triggered by anything in our environment. So touch, sound, sight, smell, and these are all really good reasons not to be turned on in any given environment. And generally, people tend to have a kind of even distribution of the gas and the brake, and so their idea of like being turned on or turned off is not too sudden. It's kind of balanced out, and they can predict that, and they can even sway it in certain directions based on the context that they put themselves in. But there's a large amount of people that are really sensitive in one direction or the other. So if like you are in a situation to just get turned on really easily, your gas pedal is kind of sensitive. If you're kind of in your head all the time and it's really hard for you to get turned on and get out of your head, then you have a sensitive brake system. I am definitely one of those people that has a sensitive brake system. If there's anything in the environment that makes me feel unsafe at all, then I'm like, nope, can't do it. So we're going to talk about ways to combat that, and then some other kind of ideas and exercises that you can do to enhance the context for maximum pleasure. Because pleasure is not just a matter of hitting that on gas button, but also turning off the brake button, context can make a huge, huge difference in this. And getting out of your head and getting into this safe environment can be really difficult in today's society, where we're taught certain things about sex, and we're taught that we need to be good, it needs to look a certain way, blah, 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 blah. And so realizing that that's all learned, that's all something that we grew up learning, And we can just as easily unlearn that. Well, not just as easily. It takes work and it takes time and it takes effort, but there are tools in your tool belt that you have and tools that I'm going to give you that you can use to unlearn that process. So, a lot of people talk about how it's easiest to get out of their head and therefore lessen that brake pedal when they don't feel like their partner is trying to reach orgasm or trying to get them to reach orgasm. At some point, when a partner is clearly trying to get you to reach orgasm, it stops becoming about the sensuality and about the experience and starts becoming more of a transaction. So people always talk about how it kind of feels like, oh, well, now the pressure's on and am I doing it wrong? Do I not like this if I'm not getting ready to reach orgasm right now? What is it going to happen if I don't reach orgasm? And then they get in their head, and then it makes it a lot more difficult to actually be in that and experience that pleasure and therefore reach the orgasm. Right? I know. So there's lots of exercises that you can do with a partner or with a loved one, someone you trust, to kind of get out of that headspace a little bit and get back into the experience that you're experiencing with your partner or partners. In order to lessen that gas pedal, a lot of people have said in various different studies that it's easier if you focus on the pleasure or the sensation that's happening and lessen the thoughts in your head. And also explicitly stating that orgasm isn't the goal is really, really valuable to lessen those expectations and get that ego out of the way, so you're not worried about being a good lover or whatever or blah, 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 but you can seriously focus on the sensation and the sensuality and the sexuality that's coming off of the journey and not the end goal. Now, that being said, I know that this is a lot easier said than done. Just saying to somebody, shut off your thoughts and focus on the sensation, sometimes doesn't work. So, here is a great technique that I like to use. This is called the 3-minute game. It was originally invented by Harry Faddis, but it's kind of taken on a new look by Betty Martin. If you don't know who Betty Martin is, she's the same person who does the Wheel of Consent, and I really, really like her work. She has a wonderful video on how to play the 3-minute game online that I'll link to in the show notes. But we're going to kind of go over the kind of basics of it here. So the kind of idea of it is that you get to ask your partner or partners 2 questions during this time, and then you set a timer when you do these questions. And the timer is particularly important because a lot can happen in 3 minutes, and you can get this kind of journey and this change this metamorphosis of the touch that happens throughout this 3 minutes that can be really liberating for a lot of people. So the 2 questions are 1, how do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes? And when you ask this, you can get a little bit of feedback here and there. You can say faster, slower, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to ask, is this good? We'll get into kind of that a little bit later. But the idea is that you want to stick with the same type of touch for the entire 3 minutes. And then you ask your partner or partners, how do you want to touch me for 3 minutes? And then you do that. And of course, there's consent involved in all of this. Please make sure that you're getting consent about all of this. And feel free to say no if you don't want your partner to touch you that way. That's all part of that journey and about discovering what it's like for each person when it comes to this specific type of touch and sensation. Another variation on this is setting a timer. And again, the timer is really important just to keep you out of your head. The timer will tell you when it goes off. You don't need to worry about the time. You don't need to worry about any of that. You can just enjoy and be present in everything that's going to happen. But setting a timer for any amount of time, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be an hour, whatever you and your partners decide on, and then setting certain qualifications for that time. So maybe it is no small talk during this time, or we can't talk to each other at all. Or maybe there's, I'm going to do something to you and there's no reciprocation, that you're not only are you not obligated to reciprocate, but you're not allowed to reciprocate during this time. That can be really powerful because people have a hard time asking for what they want. And so without feeling like they have the expectation of needing to reciprocate, if you take that out of the equation, people can really get into that pleasure and that sensation a lot more and get out of their heads a little bit. It could also be things like no moaning for the partner's benefit. Like silence and loud music is fine, but if you do anything that's for my benefit, then we start over or whatever. I don't know. Like have fun with it. Make some rules up and just have fun and see what works for you. Keep in mind that anytime you make rules in a relationship, there needs to be a way for you to take that back in any given point, and that needs to be okay as well. We touched on this a minute, but I'm going to go into more detail. Asking for feedback is really, really valuable and important during these times of sensual sexual activity. And I'm going to say it right now, right here. This may be a controversial opinion, but I'm going to get it off my chest. I really, really think that the "are you close" or "does that feel good" needs to go away. It needs to be gone forever. Nobody ever use it again. Things like, would you like me to go faster or slower, or constructive feedback, specific things are way, way easier to answer and more important to actually achieving something that your partner wants. If you think about it, like if somebody says, "Are you close?" I'm going to start getting in my head and being like, well, I don't know. Am I supposed to be close? Are you close? Do I need to back off a little? I don't know what's going on. So that's going to take me completely out of the situation. Also, if somebody were to say to me, "Does that feel good?" What happens if I say no? That's like a huge rejection on their part, and I don't really necessarily know how to make it feel better. And so I kind of just feel like I'm always just gonna say yes, or I don't know, like gentle direction is fine, but asking, "Does this feel good?" is not really a useful way to get feedback. Asking, "Would you like this slower? Would you like this faster? Would you like me to go a little harder? Would you like me to go a little softer? Would you like to roll over?" And I don't know, get creative with it, but be specific about the feedback that you're asking for your partner and the feedback that you're giving to your partner. At the same time that you're getting and giving this feedback, it's also really important to be enthusiastic about it, enthusiastic about your partner and your partner's experience and everything that's happening. There's a really good quote on this from OMG Yes that I'm going to read. OMG Yes is a website that you can buy a subscription to. It gives you, right now they have 2 seasons out. There's one on external vulva pleasure, and there's one on internal vulva pleasure, and they have done research on thousands of vulva owners in order to get to these specific things. That it's kind of a generality, but there's all sorts of like, if this doesn't work for you, this might work for you, and this might work for you, and try this in there as well. But they've done research on thousands of vulva owners, and the subscriptions that you buy to each season, you get it for life. It's not really like you have to keep paying for it. You get that season for life, and then you can share it with anybody you want, blah, blah, blah. But that money goes towards future research as well. So I love them. They're not paying me to say this. I wish they would pay me to say this, but they're not. But this quote says, you know when you get a back massage from a friend? It feels nice, but then after a little while, you start thinking, are their hands tired? Should I say thanks now? And during that time, you're not really feeling the pleasure of the massage. That's what happens for me in orgasms. Until I had a lover that was so enthusiastic about pleasuring me that I knew she wasn't getting tired or wishing it was over. She wanted to be down there, and I knew it, so I stopped thinking about it. Yeah, just take that in for a moment. Think about that. We all want to feel like we're sexy, and we all want to feel like our partners want to be with us and are enjoying themselves. And so asking for feedback is one thing, or giving feedback is one thing, but being enthusiastic about what you're doing can go so far in actually creating more pleasure for your partner or partners. Along these same lines, complimenting your partner or partners can go a long way. we are all self-conscious beings. We have all been through something that we feel like we're self-conscious about. And if you haven't had a self-conscious experience, particularly one during sex or an intimate moment, I want to talk to you because that's fascinating and you're a fascinating subject. But most people don't experience this. Most people are self-conscious in some form or another. And just hearing a compliment during this really intimate, vulnerable time can go a long way in getting somebody out of their head and just being able to experience what's happening to them. On the other side of this coin is appreciation. So most people, when surveyed about what makes sex better, have said something along the lines of that they feel like their partners are attracted to them, that their partners show attraction to their body or give them compliments or kiss them or whatever outside of the bedroom. So appreciating somebody outside of the bedroom can actually make those intimate sexual moments so much better. It builds trust. It builds that vulnerability level to a safe place that people can kind of get out of their heads and they feel like there's no way this person isn't enjoying themselves. So yeah, y'all appreciate your people outside of the bedroom. Get some romance going. Even people in the past, female identifying people have been the romantic people and always wanting romance, blah, blah, blah. Y'all, every gender wants that. Everybody wants a little bit of romance. They want to feel loved. They want to feel wanted, and they want to feel attractive outside of the bedroom. So these are just a few little tips and tricks and tools that you can use with somebody you trust to kind of explore that getting out of your head and explore how context affects your sensuality and pleasure. I do want to just kind of end by giving this idea that sexuality changes, it's fluid throughout people's lifespan. So there are some people who it is kind of stable, but for most of us, we can think back to a time when our sex drive or our sexual interest wasn't as high as it has been before or as higher than it has been before. And this is really, really normal. The interest tends to fluctuate throughout people's lives. And so sometimes there's reasons for it. Sometimes there's medication, there's trauma, there's so on and so forth. But even without any of that stuff, sex interest fluctuates. And so recognizing that and knowing that it's normal and knowing to just be in the moment and ride those waves and be okay with where you are in your given journey at any given moment is going to make it so much easier to just be with yourself and experience what you're experiencing at that moment and take every bit of pleasure out of that you can. Okay. Well, this was, I know, a weird one, so it's kind of different than what I've done before. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can email me, Krista at AmourologyEd.net. I'll put it in the show notes. You can contact me through my website at AmourologyEd.net. You can contact through my Facebook group or page at AmourologyEd. You can join to get more information or more topics about this type of stuff. We talk about sexy topics all the time and pleasure topics all the time. So if that's something you're interested in, then please feel free to join that community. We'd love to have your input and experience in that. And like and subscribe and join my Patreon if you really think that this is beneficial and you would like to see it continue and you'd like to say a thank you and give something back. All of that is really, really appreciated. I do give out stickers and messages and call outs and all sorts of stuff for my Patreon stuff. So if that's something that you're interested in, have the means to do, please, that just tells me that you're listening and you find this useful. And I think that's pretty much it. Keep watching for more juicy content. I'm going to start mixing it up here. So thank you so much.